Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop-elect Vanessa M. Brown, and I am your co-host and your moderator for this evening. I am so glad to be here with you on tonight. We have such a great conversation that's going to take place, and we've got a great guest that is here with us. I'll introduce them later. Before I do that, I love to shout out where you're from. And so let's talk about where you are from on tonight. Let us hear where you are from. We are here with you, and we're waiting for you to tell us and shout us out. Tell us where you are on tonight. We're so grateful for your presence. Welcome, Facebook Live. Welcome to you. Welcome to YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all of you that are here with us on tonight. You all are already rocking with us. Baltimore's in the house. God bless you, Prophet Teresa. I see you. Maryland is here. Philly is representing. Oh, that wonderful Breonna K. Parker. Look out, because we're about to hear from Breonna K. Parker in a couple of weeks. Dallas, Texas is in the house. Black Millennial Cafe is here. Hello from West Virginia. North Carolina is here representing. I need you all to do me a favor and please share this Facebook Live. You all are watching me on Bishop Yvette Flunder, but some people can go to Beyond the Gatekeepers page, and you can go to YouTube as well. Hello, YouTube family. Thank you for joining us. Of course, Oakland is always here. And of course, we will excuse Bishop Flunder tonight. She has some things, personal issues to take care of, but we want to keep her and Mother Miller in our prayers. Mount Dora, Florida is here. Chicago is here on tonight. Did I say West Virginia? Julio. We had Julio last week out of space, and he is so incredibly gifted Thank you for joining us tonight, Julio Caesar Roman. And if you missed last week's episode, you need to go back and listen to last week and then purchase that book as well. Josie S. Douglas, I see you. Sincere is here representing Newark, New Jersey. Rivers of Living Water, New Jersey is in the house. Baltimore, Maryland. Harlem, I see you, Pastor Peter. God bless you. Again, Hayward, California is here. So many people are coming on. I'm excited as y'all continue to share and share and share and let people know that they need to be a part of this conversation. It's going to be rich. It's going to be real. It might be a little bit raw. I see you all on tonight. This is the kind of conversations that we need to be having. Thank you for shouting yourself out, telling us where you're from. Continue to do that. And I'll make sure, do my best to acknowledge at least your city and state. Manteca, California, I see you. Rhonda Curry, Buckingham, thank you again for joining us on tonight. We want to move right into, I see. Somebody said Denver is in the house. Yay, Denver, Colorado was here. I love that. We're getting all of the West. And we're getting the East, and where's Midwest at? Where are my people from St. Louis? There we go. Midwest come right. He came right in on it. Dr. Daniel Ishango. Donnell Ishmael. Bless you, Doctor. Appreciate you so much. Flint, Michigan is in the house. Good evening, Minister Dave Tony. Loving you so much. Representing New Jersey and New York. Kaim Rodriguez. Puerto Rico is here. Somebody said Puerto Rico. Yeah, I love it. Melanie Brooks is in the house. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Melanie Elisa Lewis, thank you for joining us. I'm pretty sure that I always get how you pronounce your name, but thank you for joining us from California. Tucson, Arizona is here. Oregon City, Oregon is here. Thank you so much, Tara Wilkins. It's good to see that you're on. Blessings to you. Yeah, so y'all already know who the guest is going to be. Louisville, Kentucky is in the house. Let's get with it. Let's bring on our guests on tonight. We're so grateful to have Lenny Duncan. They are a writer, speaker, scholar, and media producer. You know a lot about Lenny if you've been following him, following them. They are an author, and I'm excited about their presence with us on tonight. Lenny Duncan, please come and greet our online guest. Really quickly, just let them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. Like I was saying earlier, my name is Lenny Duncan, and I'm not here on a podcast with some of my heroes. So I'm not going to be nervous, right? I'm going to be real cool like the Fonz. But no, thank you for having me on, Bishop-elect. Thank you.
I appreciate you so much, and we're so excited about the conversation. But we can't go on without this particular brother. Call him Uncle Bishop, but he is Bishop Carlton D. Pearson. He's an author, progressive spiritual teacher, and thought leader. He has been around for over 50 years in the church, and he has a lot to say and a lot of information to give, a lot of knowledge to give. Please, Bishop Pearson, come and greet our virtual audience on tonight.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Wednesday night gathering that we're so familiar with and love so much, and try to be here as often as we can. Thank you, Bishop-elect. It's always a pleasure. We missed the presiding bishop tonight, but she know what she doing.
Yes.
Our guest is a package of instantaneous energy, courage, spontaneity, excitement. You can't talk about human sexuality without talking about homosexuality or bisexuality or transex. Whatever the makeup of the human species is, we're a combination of all of our fantasies, all of our facts, all of our functionalities. And it's finally time for the culture to awaken to this reality, acknowledge, honor, and respect it unapologetically and without fear. We hope to get into some really deep, critical issues tonight, delicate, tender, but strong. And I'm ready to learn. I think all of you who are here are ready to learn. Lenny he got it going on. They got it going on. I don't know what to say. I'm ready to hear, ready to listen, ready to learn, and ready to observe and absorb. This is going to be a good night. You better be here.
Well, Bishop, can we get you to introduce me everywhere? We could just do that at restaurants, right? That'd be great.
Oh,
That was really a great introduction. I want to continue to shout out a few people. East Orange, New Jersey is here. Bishop Stefan E. Love Sr. Thank you for joining us tonight. Vallejo, uh, Virginia is here. I think that's what it's. Maybe it's supposed to be Vallejo, California. That's what I think it is. So yeah, this is an important night. Pennsylvania is here, Northwest Pennsylvania, and we're going to get right into it. Thank you for sharing the Facebook Live. Thank you for sharing the YouTube to engage this conversation. Lenny has a number of books, but the book that
Yeah.
and we might jump around into a couple of them, but the one that we're going to target tonight is Dear Church, a love letter from a black preacher to the whitest denomination in the U.S. Let me say that again, because just reading it sounds good. Dear Church, a love letter from a black preacher to the whitest denomination in the United States. And so, Lenny, just right off the rip, let's go right to it. I know the ELCA, which stands for Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, right? I
Mm-hmm.
know they are having difficulties even right now. This book is really prophetic, right? Because you wrote it in a time when there was issues going on, and now issues are just blowing up and inflating and spilling over right now. I want to ask you why
Yeah.
you wrote the book. Why did you write the book?
Yeah, so Dear Church is kind of an interesting book. You know, when you write something, you know this is the book you're gonna like, this is the one like people are gonna know about, but you're not really in love with the message, right? And it's because it was a lot of compromise. It was like, how do you explain to people in a critical juncture of their life cycle as a faith community, as an outsider, a super newcomer, um, and explain to them that what they're facing is going to defy diagnosis, is going to defy detection, right? It's white supremacy has this way of supernaturally shifting itself, shifting people's consciousness, turning enemies, you know, taking friends who are, you know what I mean, and turning them into enemies, turning colleagues and all kinds of things and systemic issues into weapons, right? But how do you explain that to a group of people? And so Dear Church is really my attempt to clove sort of the radical stuff that we know, which isn't that radical, right? Like auntie knows that, like, you know, my aunties knew that, like, you know, racism was of old scratch. Like, you didn't have to know that that was radical evil and have a whole framework for it, but trying to create a framework for it. And so Dear Church is really kind of I wanted to write a book that was different, and they wanted me to write a book about some of the issues of the church. And it was written at a time where I really thought that the ELCA was at a place where some reform would work. We're at a very different place now.
Very.
And so this book is sort of written, and you know, a lot of people took umbrage if I called it a love letter, and it's not very loving to the denomination. But that's because they don't understand the nature of love. Love is a predator. Like, love will do anything to protect her children, right? You know, it's just a denomination that at the time, you know, I mean, you look at right after Charleston, you know, the only white face on that stage was presiding Bishop Elizabeth Eaton, right? And everyone knew that one of ours had done it, right? Everyone in the room.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But you know, everyone knew, and we knew, right? That's why she was there. Right. And that moment, which could have been transformative, that could have became so much more, instead became a series of compromises because of the refusal of the Evangelical Lutheran Church to center Black liberation. Right. When the Holy Spirit takes tens of millions of people in 2020 to really make it clear to people, right, about what the call of this generation is, right? And nothing, total silence. I mean, you're talking, they argued over digital communion. They went round and round about masking. I mean, Black people are having an existential crisis, and here's a group of people that, if you look at the 2016 election, most of those counties that flipped for Trump by that 200,000 group of voters who caused all this, because it was only 250,000 people. Those 250,000 people were in ELCA centric counties, right?
Wow.
Minneapolis, you can't throw a piece of lefse without hitting a Lutheran, right? You look at all these places where these things are happening, and the so-called progressive white voice that is the accomplice or the ally is supposed to be the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. So at the time, I thought if we could just get them to realize that their church was on the line. I certainly did not expect them to care about black bodies, and I say that very clearly in the book. But I thought, like, if they understood the existential crisis to the very construct of Christianity we're facing, and what Christo-fascism was going to do to us, right? I thought they would do something. And like most young black queer organizers, I was terribly wrong.
Yeah, Bishop Pearson, I know you could say a lot about evangelicals. Before you do that, Bishop, I want to give this is where I know you're going to come in at. You write about, Lenny, the church's complicity and what happens when white supremacy and capitalism intersect with rampant nationalism. You say America is not a melting pot or a nation of immigrants, as politicians on both the left and the right like to claim. You say it's a nation of the powerful and the enslaved. The church has participated and continues to participate willingly in that enslavement.
Yeah. The construct of race was created as a result of the Spanish Inquisition trying to prove that Jews were not Christians. That's where the whole construct comes, this idea of who is civilized, who isn't, what is civilization, what isn't, right? And that's the church's baby. We created that, right? And we are absolutely complicit in it every time. I'm complicit every time, like I'm taking an interim gig for a good friend, a black woman in Seattle who's been going at it for 8 years, needs a break, right? I'm complicit every time I cash one of those paychecks, right? Every time I continue to push paradigms that don't uplift our people, that don't help us tap into our intangible cultural heritage, you know what I'm saying? That don't help us to really empower ourselves, and I make these little compromises along the way, then I'm complicit in the mental enslavement, if not the spiritual enslavement of my own people. And for a long time, I tried to walk in that crisis, right? I tried to walk in that tension in the church. But it's difficult,
Thank you. Bishop, I know you got a lot to say.
Well, yes, I mean, this brings up a lot for me, because the church is both complicit and complacent. Out of the ignorance, they're complacent. They don't think there's a problem. They think we have a problem, and they aren't. As I've said repeatedly, that particularly evangelical church has gotten King James and King Jesus mixed up as being the same people. They think King Jesus said, from Britain, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all the creatures. And that's us. We're the creatures. Anything that's not white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant is a creature. Martin Luther himself had anti-Semitic leanings. Hitler read some of his work. The Lutheran Church can be very complicit and complacent, and they've gotten by for years. Evangelicalism and the Evangelical Lutheran Church, they've gotten by with it because they look quiet and innocent and generous, and they've done a lot of things to help people of color. But deep down inside, most white people on the planet, particularly in the Western world, think they're superior, if not supreme. The big threat in our country right now is that the white man realizes he's the minority. Even Roe versus Wade 50 years ago, all those white people said, okay, we ain't having all these kids. We're going to start aborting these kids. They started getting around 1 or 2, and we kept having 4, 6, 10. And so now 50 years later, they're outnumbered. So, and the Lutheran Church, again, is a part of all that. They quietly get by with it. So you're actually exposing, Lenny, what is already there. And you're exposing both the complicity and the complacency, which both to me are equally strong, because silence is a form of violence. So you're not just stirring them up. Again, you're helping stir all of us up, that we're sitting in a cesspool. Slavery was birthed in colonialism and imperialism and go into all the world and preach the gospel to all the creatures. That's right. He said that in 1611. The first slaves arrived here in 1618. So it's connected to, and before that, as you know, as I said, Bishop Elect, I talked about the first book King James had written himself was necromancy, studying about fairies and demons and witches, and he was very into communication with the dead and studied all kinds of occultism and thought he had revelation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So that has scarred the Western world in ways. That one book, King James Version, more than any other book that's ever been written in the last 400 years.
Well, I mean, and in a lot of ways, like, you know, I think we forget that translation is interpretation and hermeneutic. And even if like the little versions of NSRV versus NIV and even some of that stuff, you know, I'm a narrative theologian myself. I'm just really obsessed with the story and what the story is trying to convey. And I don't know if most white Christians worship the same Christ that I encountered, right? And, you know, and I think it's very stunning right now in the ELCA. You know, we have the situation that's incredibly intersectional. We have our first trans bishop removed because of a racist situation that they were involved with, and several other clergy with an immigrant Latin community. You know, it's very complicated, right? It's one of those situations where you're like, wow, this is a complete example of what white supremacy does to us. And what white supremacy wants to do, it wants to pit queer folks against poor folks, against black folks, against, you know, brown folks, against anyone that we might have common cause with. And in particular, the demon white supremacy, which I think is systemic white supremacy. I think it has intelligence, malevolence. It moves around churches and communities and, you know, things like that. And the thing that was animating 45 left him, but I bet you around election time, whatever was in him will come back in that, you know, and suddenly, right, he'll spring to life. He'll spring to life again, right? But if you see him now, he looks dull.
Well, yeah.
And the charism has left, right? But you used to be able to see that over him. It's like left him, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, white supremacy moves in these same sort of ways, and you know, it's in, you know, so we have this incredibly tough situation where we have a trans bishop who's our first trans bishop who the ELCA didn't care about. They consecrated them on 9/11. That's just like an invitation to every white right wing maniac, right, in the country. So that was the first thing, and they say it was because that was all Elizabeth Eaton could fit on her schedule. Okay. Right. So I wasn't even going to go. That's why I didn't go to the consecration. I said in this climate, middle of 2021, I said, okay, I'm not doing that. And, you know, and then, you know, there is a white cis male predecessor. Right. And, you know, when they let the blacks and the queers and the femmes and black, you know, that's how it goes. First, they let white women in. Right. Then they'll let a black man in. Right. Then they'll let in a white queer. Right. Then finally they'll get down to black queers like me. And finally, at the very end, when all the endowments are done, all the reputation's done, everything's wore to the ground, then they'll give it to black women.
Yeah. So we can save the republic.
Right. You know, right. Right. That's what they'll say. Or they'll say, because, you know, it was the most qualified person. No, it was the only person who was willing to stand up for the people of God after you ran through all the treasure. Right. Because we show up for different reasons. And so, you know, you're seeing this play out there. And this is a trans bishop who was great, right? Was on Queer Eye, was very famous for us, right? But also was like the San Francisco Police Chapel. Let's keep it real. For a long time, and saw no discrepancies in the gospel of Jesus Christ and working with what I believe is the armed wing of capitalism, and the closest we have to Centaurians. So, you know, I mean, and a church with no power analysis other than we are one church. Right? Because that's all the ELCA's power analysis is that and we got records older than the ELCA. Don't let them claim that 500 years. They're an amalgamation of three churches that in the early 90s wanted to be the largest Lutheran church in the world. They had 3 different polities, completely different looks at the confessions. They looked at Melanchthon differently. They looked at Luther differently. They looked at Congregationalism differently. They looked at whether we should be an episcopate differently, and they slammed it all together for convenience. Now, here we are some 30 years later, right? Again, I got hip hop albums in my living room older than the ELCA right now. In fact, I got a pair of vintage sneaks older than the ELCA right now in my closet, right? But they claim all this theological gravitas in history, but it's not there. What you really have is a system that is set up so it protects the bishops. It's congregational enough that the bishops aren't really in trouble until they step in, and then they have complete power and complete protection. And it's only an episcopate when one of them's in trouble. And they have a behavioral agreement where none of them can disagree with each other publicly.
Wow.
And so, I don't get upset by the ELCA anymore, because when I treat it like a corporation, it makes perfect sense.
I know I read that, but so you kind of moving into this next question. But for those that are just tuning in, we are talking to Lenny Duncan. Lenny has a book, and the book is called Dear Church, a love letter from a Black preacher to the whitest denomination in the United States. If you're just joining in, we want you to know that. So you say, Lenny, white supremacy and capitalism hold hands. That's what you say. You say, and the church has made no serious attempts to break that link because it grasps those same closed fists. You say pastors in particular are at fault here. We need to keep our jobs in a shrinking consumer market, so we shy away from the toughest issues in order to maintain a shallow, tenuous peace. Say more.
Well, we see this all the time in the church. I would like to think that I'm a moderate preacher, a decent theologian. I'm not great at administration but a couple things, but I probably would have done better if I would have played respectability. And I'm not talking about extraculturally. I'm talking intraculturally.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. And so, we are in mixed company online, so I will not talk ill of our own. But I will say that if I would have wore some now and later gaiters, if I would have sharpened up the suit, right? If I would have not said the F-bomb every once in a while, never from the pulpit, my God, clutch my pearls, and anyone's ever been in my congregation, who loves me? My favorite, my demo is like 60 plus. They love me, right? And that's because like the way that I have care and comfort for the church, but my public theology has a rhetoric and a polemic that's tough, because this is times for that. There will be no Christian witness in 50 years in this country if we do not enter the battle to dismantle white supremacy. The Christo-fascism will become the only Christian message. And it's not the first time it's happened, and it's not the last. I mean, you think the Vatican, accidentally released a pope secretly working with Hitler? I mean, the Vatican, they're signaling some things, right? They're concerned too. Everyone's concerned about these arms of each one of our denominations that seem to be people we do not recognize anymore. And it's a problem. Fascism, you can't negotiate with it. You can't invite it. You cannot get it to sign a covenantal agreement. You cannot, fascism is a disease. It wants to take all those rights from you, right? You have to remove it, very famously, a cartoon artist, the guy who writes, I can't remember the cartoon right now, but, he talked about it, and he's like, fascism is a cancer. It's a very famous rant in 2017. Fascism is a cancer, and you either kill it or it kills you.
Yeah.
And that's really where the church is right now. And I don't think our leaders, we can't even get like Bishop Curry from the from the Episcopal Church to say Black Lives Matter on Twitter, because that's too controversial. Like, that's where we are right now. Like, you think about that, right? That's the closest any of us will ever get to the throne of St. Peter. You know what I mean? And, they didn't invite organizers when they had that thing in the Twin Cities. They invited the chief of police that week. And that was like a couple weeks later, right? And so we are really infected by this. We are really, and Black folks, I think in particular, we miss it a lot because the ways that we rely on the Republic and the ways that we interact with the Republic are so broken and so dangerous anyway. It's hard to see our complicity in it. You know what I mean? But it's like little things we do and we say along the way because we're worried about scaring people. Honestly, people should be scared. The social construct that is the United States of America melted on January 6, 2021. You should be afraid.
Yeah.
One of the things that probably needs to be brought out, and I haven't to the degree that I should and that I am now, is that in general, white people of all denominations in the Western world, particularly, say they welcome us, and they do sort of casually, but they don't really want us, and they're not going to say that. They say they welcome females' participation in leadership. They don't really want it. They say they welcome blacks or same-gender-loving people, but they don't really want us. They want things the way they've always been. So they kind of condescendingly look at us or receive or welcome us. There's an arrogance there. There's a superiority, a sense of supremacy, white privilege, Anglo-Saxon. We're the purest germ from Germany of the human species, and white is right. You know,
Yeah.
they even Jesus. When I was a kid, Jesus. Every picture I saw of Jesus was white. God looked like Einstein or somebody. All the angels were white. The most powerful house in the country was the White House. I mean, it's inculcated into the deep psyche and soul of this nation. And right now it's being unveiled and revealed. And January 6th is an open rebellion, a public breakdown of these people realizing they're the minority. They're losing ground. They don't just they want to win an election by any means necessary. They don't mind lying, cheating, gerrymandering, cutting people out. It's nauseating to see it. And I'm on it every week. We need to keep it in their face because these white folks don't get it. Some of my dear Christian friends still don't get it.
Well, I got to tell you what changed me in particular for a long time. I really thought I was doing good, doing the thought leader stuff and traveling around and talking to congregations. And, you know, during the uprisings in 2020, May 30th, it took me 5 days to get my affairs in order. I go down to the Justice Center here in Portland. And, you know, we had the experience of literally listening to the sitting president of the United States talk on a talk show about what he would do next with troops. And then those troops follow those orders on us. I had peers, rabbis, imams, pastors, organizers, faith-based organizers and beyond, kidnapped by federal agents with unmarked, you know, very well documented in the New York Times, kidnapped in full uniform, but with no patches, guns held to our heads, drove around for hours while they sat in silence and stared at us. Right. We became a test balloon for fascism.
Where were you? Where were you?
I now sit or have the honor of sitting mostly with what amounts to Black Lives Matter Portland, but a lot of the folks are focused around justice for Patrick Kimmons, who was a young man who was killed before the uprisings, and his mother Letha, who's been, you know, leading several marches a week since 2018, way before, you know, any of this. I mean, since 2019. And most of the Black Bloc, a lot of the folks who were hit by the Normandale shooting are folks that I've been given chaplaincy work for. And I left my job to do that. And, you know, and it's because of what I saw there. And what I saw there was I saw democracy be tested in an urban environment and how far people would go. And I got to tell you.
You say you were with the rabbi and the rabbi gets in front of you and gives you his gas mask and tells you, you know, I'm right here. I'm going to tell that story.
Yeah. So so Rabbi Ben, one of my first nights out, it was Sunday, and they asked me to take the Sunday shift because everything had kind of calmed down, they thought. And like within 5 minutes, I'm like wrestling a handgun out of a protester's hand because he was like drunk and fighting with another houseless cat. And like a lot of houseless people got caught up in the temporal autonomous zone out front. So suddenly, you know, got folks who've been entrenched there. All of a sudden, there's like riot ribs there. They're being gassed every night. By this point, the wall of moms, which are all black mothers who literally are human shields, that's why they're the wall of moms, are wearing like bulletproof vests and crying as they line up every night, like they're lining up for their death. And so I wrestle a handgun out of this kid's hand. One kid gets hit. We get everyone out of there. The police, everything's fine, right? Like, no one goes to jail. No one's really hurt. You know what I mean? Someone got a little winged. We de-escalate the police. They leave. And that night, for some reason, man, the feds were pissed. And I think the mayor came out like the night before to get like his CNN moment. They were just mad. And Trump's rhetoric on all day had been crazy on Twitter. It was like real out there. And so we were watching that very closely, and they came out real strong. And they gassed us. Well, first they hit us with plastic bullets and my escort, because by this point, if there's so few black people here, white organizers will not let you walk around by yourself. So by this point, everyone's got an escort. We don't even know who these people are, right? And so they target us with some rubber bullets. They hit my escort. He goes down. I catch up with Rabbi Ben on the other side. And they start gassing us, and he hands me his gas mask. And, it was just this moment of like, here's this Jewish person handing me a gas mask. And we still don't know what was in that stuff. That's not tear gas. Many of us are reporting many different symptoms. They admitted that they tried an experimental kind of thing on us that, throughout they tried 5 different new gases, which, by the way, tear gas itself is a violation of the Geneva Convention. We don't even use it in a war, but we use it on our citizens. And so this was months of this, to the point where the average, like, Portland white woman whose parents moved here for this white utopia, right, which is what the state constitution said, was coming out front from her rose bushes to like throw rocks and bricks at the cop because they were tired of tear gas going into their homes because we tried to leave the downtown area. They followed us into the neighborhoods. They would kettle us on your driveway against your house.
Wow.
Right? And so, and this was all with complete control from, and this is the important part, it was all coming from Pennsylvania Avenue. And in any other country we'd be looking at where the Border Patrol was operating within the interior, anyone who studies geopolitical situations, has a politics degree or a sociology degree, that means that country's going to fall.
Yeah.
That means they are losing control, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I'm very scared about Christo-fascism. I watched as the cops let the Proud Boys and the white anarchists line up like Battle of the Bastards off of Game of Thrones. And if it wasn't for the intervention of black organizers saying, no, this battle isn't going to happen, we're going to take you to a day of learning. But the police were going to let 500 people run at each other with baseball bats, equipment, guns, and just let it happen. So, and this is happening in a major American city, and it's still happening. Just 10 weeks ago, we lost June T-Rex, and who was a 60-year-old white woman who came every Thursday from her chemo treatment so she could be a human shield for Letha, and she was that day. And the first headline said white homeowner. No, it says homeowner defends house from Antifa. Right. Later on, we find the guy's YouTube channel. We find out he's a lifelong white supremacist, that he's been waiting for opportunities like this. And then, the grand jury cleared us because our folks defended themselves.
Right.
And I guess I'll just say this. This is my last point about this. I was standing with a good friend, Lena, over at the Rose Garden for a memorial for the buffalo, just to give folks an idea, because these are babies. And this is the youth organizers. And the little girl was talking about the 2 years she's been organizing since George Floyd, right? She's 15. 2 years every day out there. She's 15 years old, no support. And the closest she got to an elder, sadly, me and a few others. And, and so we're really seeing it here. We're seeing the effects of it here. We're seeing what it's like when people, it is just like you would expect. It's just like the towns outside of Auschwitz. People go about their business. People go to the opera. People go to eat. People order stuff off Amazon, and they pretend that there aren't constant white supremacist murders here, and that there aren't constant because our side now, I try and, I'm not even stopping the kids. They walk around armed now. They're wearing full flak jackets. They're wearing AR-15s because they're trying to protect black women who are just trying to get justice for their kids because they're so tired of just taking pot shots. And so, I'm watching this scale up. So I've spent the last 2 years doing that work. Because of what we learned in Ferguson. We learned in the first 100 days, if someone goes 100 days straight, they're very likely to be murdered or to commit suicide. We don't know why, but things fall apart for various reasons.
Yeah.
And so, there needs to be a witness there, right? Like, my whole life, I was waiting for white people to stand up, and then a whole city stands up of them, and I'm going to like walk away. Like, so it's been a really life-changing experience. It's changed what I think ministry is, and it's why I think that the church is no longer God's chosen vessel on earth. I think that the people are, and I think God's been very clear since 2020.
Go ahead, keep going.
No, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, because I'm going to ask you where you think the church is going to be, but before I do that, you say, you wear a black cassock because whiteness does not equal holiness and blackness does not equal evil, brokenness, or self-denial. Black is holy. Like, that was deep.
Yeah, like when I think of blackness, I think of like if you know anything about Ifa, the first like 16 mejes, like the first one's Ogbe, the second one's Oyeku, right? Oyeku is like the absence, it's the womb, right? It's the spreading out of the universe. It's the universe like almost like letting a breath out so we have room to be, right? That's blackness. That's space. That's where life came from, right? Like some meteor fell here with some random organic bits from some other place smashed in some other stuff, and you're made out of that stardust. That's what God used as the chosen vessels to bring us here, right? That's us. That's where we're from, right? And that's how I look at blackness. I look at blackness just like that. They say in Yoruba land, they say that death, she was so beautiful that she was black as night, that she looked like the stars outlined her. That's what I mean by blackness, right? When even the thing that comes to take you onto the next journey so beautiful that you like just stop in awe of it. And it's this idea that white equals holy, right? Why do we wear white robes? Why are we wearing white stuff on Easter? What is this? What are these messages? And people could say it's tradition for the last 500 years. That's cool. I don't know if anyone told you, but something else happened simultaneously during those 500 years. And that was white supremacy and colonialism. And anything we can do with holy symbols to push back against that, we should. Yes. And what's at risk? I see this all the time. They're just like, well, people just wouldn't go for it. Well, why not? Why wouldn't people go for it? And why wouldn't you want to be worshipfully like liberating and revolutionary, right? Like one of the things that, I mean, ain't much, right? But during the crisis with kids being held at the border, one of my good friends just put barbed wire around their baptismal font. And if you wanted to go get some water, you had to go reach around the barbed wire.
Wow.
Right? Because and so like it's why wouldn't you use the symbols in this way, right? It's one of the few weapons they left us, right? Was that hour in the barn with a book they stole most of the good stuff out.
Bishop Pearson, I'm gonna let you talk right now, but before you do, we're giving away the book tonight. I think we're gonna do like 6 copies. Someone else in the audience has already said they're gonna purchase one on behalf of someone else. Remember, you must type the hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. It's all one word. If you put any space, it doesn't go through, right? So it has to be hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, all one word, so that you can get that book raffled off at the end of the evening. Bishop Pearson.
It's really difficult to face the fact that I'm a 4th generation classical fundamentalist evangelical Pentecostal preacher. I gave the first 50 years of my life 1,000% to that ideology. And now we're dealing with at least 2,000 years of entrenched indoctrination, much of which is erroneous or inaccurate and inadequate. Some of it's outright deception and lies. I'm struggling because a part of me is mourning, MOURNING, over my 92-year-old mom lives here in the house. I mean, she's totally into the KJV, and so was my dad and their dad. And so that whole cultural iconoclasm is now hanging in the balance for me. I'm not accepting it as legitimate. It was experienced legitimately, but I'm having to say we got the shift, SHIFT, wrong. we just, most of it is a lie, and it's self-made, and it's guarding this whole idea of white supremacy in the Western world that starts with the Holy Roman Empire. Jews didn't kill Jesus, Italians did, Latins did, Romans did, and the Holy Roman Empire has all these secrets, and that's what Martin Luther resented and resisted, and that's why we are protesting, and we're still protesting stuff that doesn't make sense. And that's what Martin Luther. What's that?
Feedback. We
A little
got
bit
it.
of feedback.
Ask nobody for feedback, but anyway, I think we have to accept the fact that most of the stuff, the greatest story ever told, might just be the greatest story ever sold, and we bought it and bought into it, and now we're having subtle buyer's remorse, and we don't know what the heck to do with it, because I know bishops and leaders and clerics and people that are very solid and sincere, born-again Christians who are as confused as they've ever been, because the information highway is informing us. You don't have to go to a seminary to be inseminated.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need that semen. Or see, we can go on the internet and study history and do the research and find out it's a lot of BS. And that's an awkward, harsh way to say it. If I was a cussing man, I'd say bullshit, but I don't cuss. I just say it would be BS. So
Yeah. No,
I hate it, but it's stunning me. I mean, I'm 70 years old. I'm in my 70th year. Everything about me is being shaken. And it's people like you, Lenny, who are fearless. Somehow you have mustered. It's really your calling and your coding to be different.
Yes.
To be extraordinary, to not, or be what I learned back in high school, the nonconformist. And even some of the things that Aldous Huxley spoke in The Brave New World, we're part of that. We're creating a brave new world, and it takes eventful people like you. You are an event. You don't just. You are happening. You don't have to be happy. You have to be happening. I don't know what happening is. You have to be occurring, just being you, functioning, occurring on the planet, and you're getting a lot of attention. You're creating tension, which gets attention, which insists on intention. Intention. We must intentionally change, shift, protest, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a time for that. I was actually listening to a couple episodes back, and Bishop Flunder was talking about a time for a new canon. I mean, we talk, I make this joke all the time, but it's not actually a joke. I mean, reincarnation was on the table up until the last week, but like somebody wanted a cupcake. Because when Constantine put those 30 bishops in there, he started to starve them. Yes. And so, you've got these, people don't understand that the first 200 years of Christianity had 60 books. The Gospel of Judas, where Judas is actually the most faithful disciple, because Jesus tells him what his fate's going to be at the very beginning and asks him to come along with him and say, will you be the one who helps empire do this? Right. You've got the, Gospel of Barnabas, you've got the Gospel of Mary, the Christian world at the time is incredibly diverse. There is no canon. There is no idea. I mean, they're still arguing about was Jesus a physical person?
Right.
I mean, they walk into the room with that argument.
Right.
Was Jesus a physical person? And you got to remember why they're in that room. They're in that room because the Roman Emperor Constantine had a vision of a bloody cross over a battlefield, and he swore to Zeus and Rome and his other gods that if that Christian cross is what leads me to victory, then right, I'm gonna do it. But after 30 years of dealing with us, which I can understand, he was like, y'all got to get in a room and get it together.
Yes.
And so what comes out is what we call Christianity. But I mean, things like reincarnation were on the table. things like astral projection, that, things like treating the world like more like medicine or alchemy, right?
Yeah.
And this idea that the powers of the 72 were given to all of us, right?
And they got rid of all of those books, every
Yeah.
single one of them.
Yeah. And that's important, right? It's important to note that we only have the scraps of what was left over of an oral tradition, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. It's the scraps of an oral tradition. It's the same thing, it's bits and pieces.
It's bits and pieces.
And Jesus could be a lot more than we think. You know what I mean? And I'm super into like Christ having a lot more autonomy, a lot more power, a lot more flash. There's a Yoruba Orike for the ancestors that in English is like, we are magnificent, the ancestors are magnificent. We are magnificent, the ancestors are magnificent. It's like this, and you say it back to each other, and like the reply when you get it straight, like, yeah, right? It's like really fun, right? When you're doing it. But what's great about it is because it's the truth. Like,
Yeah.
even on my white side, there was a John Brown, or my mother wouldn't have married my father, and lived in West Philadelphia during the move bombings and not leave, during, the end of the Moon Gang truce, when the Panthers had pulled out, when JBM took over in the middle of the crack era, and it got real dangerous, right? Because my mom still knew that place was safer for me than where she grew up. Right. So she knew that like she would take the hits. Right. And so my point is like there had to be a John Brown in her line. Right. And there were radical people when I get older. Right. My aunt Sissy and my uncle Tommy, who lived together their whole lives as brother and sister, and just went on vacation with their friends. Right. There are these people who carve lives out for themselves, and we are not a mistake. We are a result of our ancestors and the work that they did.
Right.
And so a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with, we've dealt with before. We've had to remake the church, and African people or African descent people in the Americas, or as I say, Black people in the Americas, because that's a political term I choose. Like we've done this before.
Yeah.
This is not the first time we've had to remake our holy books. We've had to sit and we've had to rethink, what is God saying now? Right. And God might be saying something that's not a new thing, but an old thing kind of returned, is my opinion.
I often say, and it makes people a little bit uncomfortable when I say I don't believe that the so-called Bible is the inspired word of God as much as it is the inspired word of men and no women about God.
Yeah.
And a lot of that inspired is now expired. It's almost totally irrelevant. And we have to, the fact that we've made it an icon, an idol, and from the beginning they didn't include women. The book of Esther wasn't written by Esther.
Right.
Women wrote books. Mary, Magdalene, there's a lot of women in scripture that we call it his story, but we ignore her story.
Oh, right. Well, behind every charismatic savior, Bishop, there's 4 or 5 women paying for everything that he does.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the story of scripture, are these powerful women who are widows and divorced and all these other things, using what little privileges they have to sort of defend this nascent movement. We see this in the Black movement all the time. We see this in Black Lives Matter all the time, right? We see these people show up. So, yeah. I mean, I often wonder what wasn't written down. In the same way, every MLK day, I wonder what books, like whole libraries, we missed. Right.
Yeah.
I think about the volumes we're supposed to have. Like, I'm like, yo, what would the Washington Post piece be about this week?
Right.
That's what I think about. Like, what would Dr. King say about the gun crisis right now, and the way that militarism, capitalism, and imperialism have fully mounted, and now the truly the chicken has come home to roost, right?
Yeah.
And
Indeed.
it's happening in their communities now, and they're scared, right?
Yeah.
But so I think about that in the same way I think about Christ and the disciples, like what and the women that were around Christ in particular.
I want to take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Before I do that, I am encouraging everyone to, first of all, continue to share this conversation. And also, if you have one or two questions that are really good questions. I want you to post it. Make sure you put the word question before it so that we can identify it. We are talking to Lenny Duncan. He has a great book. We're going to give away about 6 copies of that book tonight. And the book, you have to make sure that you put hashtag beyond the gatekeepers if you want the book. All right. So if you have questions that are weighing on you, questions that you want him to answer that are relative to this conversation, amen, then we want
Amen.
you to
Amen.
ask that question. Now, uh, Lenny, you talk about 1,000 cuts. I
Mm.
found I had to sit there with that for a minute. You talk about 1,000 cuts. You said those microaggressions that more often than not go unchecked in Lutheran circles because they are so widely accepted by the dominant culture. I'm sure that we can say that about a lot of denominations, but since we're talking about the ELCA, tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's death by 1,000 cuts. I watched so many of my elders um give 20, 30, 40 years to this denomination, right? A lot of them were raised by like Nelson Trout, Rudy Featherstone, the Perils, Cheryl and Pete, right? Who, Cheryl just passed away, and like and others, right, who are still alive now. And I watch these folks and they're so tired because there's a 400-year-old Lutheran church on St. Thomas that's black and Lutheran, right? There is sort of like this old um beautiful legacy that's been looked over. But I was in a conversation with one of my elders just the other day. I mean, not the other day, but a few months ago. And after some stuff that happened to them, and he was giving the speech he always gives, right, where he says, "Well, this is my home, and I belong here, and I won't allow anyone to run me off." And I let him finish because he's my elder. But I just asked him a question. I said, "Elder, if they treated you like that after 40 years, how they gonna treat my queer ass?"
Right.
And he didn't have a real answer in that moment, right? And so my point is, so many of them have been cut to shreds by people saying just comments about their pastoral care style, the way that they show up, the way that they preach, um constantly questioning their authority in multiple ways. Reports of janitors just doing whatever they want in their office, and just like stuff that wouldn't even pass cotton in your aunt's house, let alone at a
Right.
church, right? And you sort of get these things where, like, like I remember one time I was speaking on this book at the Association of Teaching Theologians, and a professor asked me to pull up my shirt to show off my tattoos, right? Right? He might as well have asked me, can I see the boy's teeth? And can we put my finger up there to make sure he's healthy? Right?
Wow.
Right. And so it's these moments that people don't get the historical um or intersectional, or they just don't get the weight of it, right? I was talking to a thought leader friend who's like real famous, and like, she's a white cis woman, and we're not really friends anymore, but like, at the time we were close. And like, and she was talking about like not getting in the fray and focusing on my art, right? Which is often advice I get from peers. Why are you always in the fray? Well, why don't you just stay focused on your art? You have such a bright future ahead of you. And I said, the difference for me is that every time you get on stage to talk about your work, you're not defending your very existence. And it's like that every time you go into a pulpit and a mostly white denomination. In every way, you're being judged, and you're being judged to a standard that you can't see, you'll never be able to hit, and you'll never be. Um, there are good churches out. 3.5 million people, I'd say well over 30% of us are ready for a change, ready for something radical, ready for something different. Uh, there are legions of white people who beg to sit under the feet of black people and be told what to do in this denomination. And I mean legions. Um, but what they need is the old guard to get out of the way by allowing some of the Holy Spirit to give the spirit of rotation to the denomination. We're not saying we don't want your wisdom or we don't want you around or part of the process. What we're saying is allow the spirit of rotation. In particular, the Conference of Bishops needs to be broken up. It's an old boys club. Ecclesiastical ballots are a joke. Ecclesiastical ballot means I don't get a chance for you to get to meet me, and someone who's been in the synod for 30, 40 years, who knows everyone and plays golf with all his buddies becomes bishop, right? Because he's a safe choice. And so, the Conference of Bishops needs to be broken up, and I think we need to reconstitute because, this is a denomination when it founded that said it would be 10% BIPOC within 5 years. And in 2018, they removed it from their constitution because they could never hit the goal. So, this is obviously a place with some deep issues around this stuff. But I also think that they're probably the closest we'll ever get to the most movable white people in a major American denomination. Because I don't think there'll be professional clergy in 20 years in the way that we know it. I think we're going to be very much practitioners and people in our communities in the old way.
Overall, religion as we've known it, I think in the next 30, 50, the most 100 years will dissipate and actually disappear and not be repaired but replaced with a spiritual paradigm that will include science and technology and intelligence. We talk a lot about...
I wish I could announce this thing because you said that, Bishop. I wish this contract was in my mailbox about Black futurism and some of those thoughts, but I'm gonna shoot you an email. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what the future looks like. Really? I'm at GTU and they're asking me to give plant medicine to physicists, right, at UC Berkeley in the next couple of months, right? Because they're like, so like people are starting to realize that we're not that far off, right. We're a little bit closer than we thought.
There's unidentified flying objects, and they're becoming more prominent and more acknowledged even by the Pentagon, but nobody wants to identify the unidentified lion objects.
Come on.
Yeah, they're flying around flying in line. And now we're going to, and they're obvious. As I often say, ignorance doesn't mean just to not know, but to not notice or to refuse to make note of. The obvious is screaming at us. And some of us are repeating the scream or rehearsing, resounding the scream because the universe, as Scripture says, is groaning, waiting for the manifestations. And I think that with the increase of natural disasters, whether that's global warming related, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, a lot of that stuff is just right on the threshold. We're about to experience some of the most... the universe itself is revolting because it's correcting itself and clearing and cleansing itself and upgrading the species.
Yeah.
And we can't do that without disrobing. We got to go back to the original nudity of some paradise that people call Eden, where we are vulnerable and exposed, and Adam and Eve were naked and felt no shame. There's a lot of shame out here because we used to say that the emperor has no clothes, but the emperor has actually, in Trump, took off his clothes and said, "Kiss my butt." That's
exactly
what people are saying. And millions are kissing it.
Well, and I mean, this always happens, right? We look at history, after the Spanish flu, you get World War I, you get Franz Ferdinand, a small country kind of draws the world into war. And I mean, we're going to repeat the same moments over and over again. But I do believe, like you, Bishop, that this time's different. You can just feel it in the air. Humanity's gonna, whatever we're going to be, it's definitely on the table. And I think the other side knows that. I mean, Christo-fascists, I mean, listen, they had, the fascists, they also had like witches there and you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying like in a pejorative way. I mean, like we had a witches camp too and all that stuff. And those folks who were out there with the interfaith folks, right?
Yeah.
But like those folks believe in that stuff. They believe in their very gods are guiding them on a righteous battle to inherit this planet. And if you ain't got at least a little bit of that behind you, right?
And that's for real. That's for real. It's the same thing that the kid that killed the people in Buffalo said. Okay. He put a
They
whole
believe this.
manifesto on Facebook. He said he was a white supremacist. He's of 18 years old. Where did he learn that from?
Yeah.
This white kid. Where did he learn it from?
Yeah.
Right?
But
He's
You know
a
what?
self-avowed white supremacist who put a manifesto on Facebook and said that he was angry
based off
because
of Dylan Roofs and others, by the way.
based off
Thanks
of
again.
Dylan, right?
All
It's
right. Thanks
nothing but
again to
it's a
ELCA.
trail.
Right.
Absolutely. We can just draw a parallel straight to them, right? They're kind of like copycats that are rising up all over the place.
We need to
Yeah.
also remember, though, that in both cases, Buffalo and Uvalde, these young men, Buffalo shot his mother first.
Yeah.
Uvalde shot his grandmother in the face.
Correct.
Yeah.
That particular element is angry at their parents. They're
Yes.
angry at their history.
Or
They want-
somebody in their authority that's in their life. Yes.
Yeah, anybody who could shoot their mother or grandmother in the face like that ain't gonna have no problem shooting somebody else.
Right.
But that they would shoot their mother that brought them or grandmother that brought them into the earth and feel no remorse and then go on to do others, that's a sign to me in the natural of what that generation is about to do to their mothers and fathers, and they're gonna kill. They think we want to get the guns and kill them. No, they're gonna kill themselves. It's not a black man's mind or one woman's mind to get revenge on white people.
No.
They gonna do it themselves. They the country for war. The worst war in American history, where more Americans were killed, was the Civil War. It happened on these shores. Over 600,000 people were killed, and hundreds of thousands more maimed for life. And we're at civil war right now. What are we doing with Uzis and AK-47s and AR-15s? I mean, you armed us with assault weapons to assault each other. We ain't assaulting. We're not assaulting the Arabs and the Mexicans and the foreigner. We're assaulting each other, and that's going to increase until this country wakes up and realizes it has committed suicide.
Well,
Lenny, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think that's the part of the point for the last couple of years. I think people are kind of missing that the point is the fear. The point is the discord. The point is us not being afraid to come together with people on any particular side of goodwill with a common cause, right? With a proper power analysis. I work with many people like that, and we have, I think of 9 indigenous organizers locally who have very different goals than me, but we have common cause.
Yeah,
but it's the fear. It's that's it. That's the point of the last few years. And that being in the ether, and that being part of your spirit, and that being part of your prayer. And every day you get up, you feel like you're on a swivel and your endocrine system constantly going. That is part of what is happening to us. And you have to pay attention to that. You have to pay attention to a world that tells you that nothing you do matters. That means everything that you do, every personal encounter you have matters 10 times more right now. Right? Because they're afraid of us. Because predators only act like this when they're afraid. Yeah. When they know they're dying.
That's when I made the example that when Trump out of the box goes after Biden, something in his soul told him Biden was going to unseat him. These people on January 6th, that was an open display of they know their days are numbered. Yeah. They know they're outnumbered and their time has come to an end. And so they're just fighting it. They'll win a few battles, but they will not win the war.
No.
Their day is come and gone. It's a new day. And we don't know what all that means, but I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be there, and I'm grateful to have a small part of it. I'll probably have a small farm that you can come visit that will start out as a retreat center out here away from everything. But, as soon as
you are a small farm and you're becoming a ranch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I hope I do. Because I want everyone to come, buy land. I mean, because I know our time's up, the biggest thing I've been doing is building counter systems, mutual aid stuff. Learn about mutual aid. If you're a pastor, take the Stop the Bleed course right now. Go to the local organizers. Take Stop the Bleed. Ask for Stop the Bleed. Ask for the Street Medic course. Ask for the National Street Medic course, right? And learn these skills, right?
National Street Medic course.
Yep. And you go to any organizers out there, they'll tell you that you'll find them. They're local, right? They're medic blocks and go on Instagram. That's how the kids talk. Search medic blocks and hashtag your town. You'll find it. Find a Stop the Bleed training. Learn how to do mutual aid. Learn how to do learn how to do logistics in your community to move food and resources around,
Mhm.
just in case you get stuck in the house for a few years. I know that
Yeah.
sounds a little crazy, but just in
Oh,
case,
Just in
you
case.
get stuck in the house for a few years and the US government seems like it's leaving you on your own,
Right.
right?
which you will.
And people turn to the churches. It's surprising. You're talking about, the Pacific Northwest is the least religious place in the universe, I think.
It
But
is.
yet, in the moment of crisis, people ran to the churches. People went to the
Yes, they
churches,
did.
and
Yep.
people found shelter in the churches. So,
Right.
you may feel like, why should I do all this for me and my 5 parishioners in the middle of nowhere? It will be relevant when the time is right.
I'm gonna give you a last question, and then Bishop Pearson and Lenny, I want you all to give me final statements. Uh, you have a chapter on reparations,
Mm,
right? He said, because it's rich, right? You you propose a course of action. Churches should look at every plot of land their building sits on,
hmm
investigate the extent to which the procurement and development of each property participated in the disenfranchisement of slaves, and begin paying this debt with interest from their own coffers. Now is the time for all of us to step forward boldly. I see it, to finally pay
Laying
back
back.
what the church stole long ago. Talk
Mm.
about it, brother. Come on. Leave us with
Well, I
something, Lenny.
mean, you're talking about these sort of major institutional structures that are based on this premise that they were supposed to hold the line until the Holy Spirit came back and Christ came back and, spend all
Mm-hmm.
their treasures in this new kingdom of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the time is now and we are here. And so, you know when instead of looking at all these properties as like, we can put a condo here or we can do a housing development here, what would it mean if major white denominations found the actual people who labored on that land, found the indigenous people who actually own that plot of land, found out the story of that land and returned it to the actual owners, the people who lost their labor? And what kind of message would that send to America while we're having this discussion? You know, my ancestor, Thomas Duncan, was here for 4 years and he escaped and he ended up in the Poughkeepsie Union Army. And who knows, right? Most people, that's right where Mama Moses's house was. He fit the profile, young, single, no kids, right? But he fought for something in a land that wasn't his with people who spoke a language he had just learned, and he was promised something by Mr. Lincoln. He was promised something that my grandfather was so proud of. He went to World War II, right? My great grandfather, my guardian ancestor, he went to World War One. I did not serve, right? But like, this, so my point is like, that is what reparations is. It's an investment in the so-called American dream that they keep proposing to us, right? It's not going to be free. And so the church can lead the way on this. They could be the spiritual nard. They can do this. They could do it systemically, and they could do it within 5 years in a way that could radically transform Black communities everywhere, right? But they would rather give it to someone and make it a financial albatross around their neck, find some way to profit from it. And they don't want to have the hard conversations with their people. Hey, there's 5 of you in here and no one's coming. And honestly, you've all been really racist and you owe this community something, right? No one wants to go in and say that, right? And there's ways you can say that lovingly and you can get them to that place. But like, no one even wants to have the conversation. How do we do that, right? How do we do that? And it's important for us to be that place. It's important that people of faith and faith communities, no matter what we become, we have to be a place where where healing can happen and liberation can happen, right? We also have to agitate too. So I think it's something that could really be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Um, and then white folks can do the ancestral work they need to do. It's the only country in the world with ancestors screaming above your head. You go anywhere else, you can sleep for the night. You know, uh the world would do a lot of good if white people went through their ancestral lineage and figured out ways to pay back what they owe this world. I mean, just even that. you know, if they got in touch with who they were before they bought into white, right?
It's good.
So that's like kind of like my last word around that, and you know, but yeah, I mean, I think it's something that white churches can do right now that's viable, visible, and real, and would change Black lives today. But it didn't go well for me.
Unfortunately, these people don't want to repair or repent. They want to repeat what they've done in the
Mm,
past. They're stuck there. My biblical eschatology is this. I don't believe, and there's nowhere in scripture where the term end of the cosmos occurs, only end of the age.
mm-hmm,
Even Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
as saying, I'm with you to the end of the age. We've come to an end of the age. Even
amen.
the Jesus age. He said, I must go, but we won't let him go.
Yeah, no, I've been preaching the
We
same thing.
gotta let him go. Even there were times when he said, don't even mention my name no more. Don't tell nobody you know me. Well, the Christian church is hanging on to that. And I know that's scary, but he says the Holy Ghost, the comforter, which is the divine feminine, will never really manifest fully. This bullying spirit is there.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
when the real comforter comes, he says, I have to go or the Holy Ghost won't come. So
yeah,
we won't let him go. I think there's another revival, but we got to let Jesus go. And I know that sounds sacrilegious when I suggest that let Jesus be Jesus, but don't try to bring him into the 21st century the way we had him in the 20th century and see, because
right.
that's Christianity being remodeled. So everything's going to fall apart. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but it will get better. Lenny, be you, dude. I mean, you have such an intelligence. You're a scientist, you're a philosopher, you're a psychologist, you're a therapist, you're a theologian, you're a preacher, you're even poetic. And don't mind being pathetic because you're prophetic. Part of
Mm,
your prophetic essence is your prophetic projection. You've got to shock us, and you're doing that. You're stunning these people. They're watching you, but you are so well endowed and so well equipped in the spirit for what you need to do, be, and say, and you're going to do it, buddy.
well,
You got it.
Bishop.
You're
Bishop, I'm gonna play those words every time I'm having a bad day. It really means a lot. You know, in seminary, when I couldn't find my place, and you know, I was gonna give up. Like people introduced me to your work, and you know, Bishop Flunder's work, and really told me that I wasn't alone because I felt alone as a Black queer person who wasn't raised in the church. Right? Why would you come for the damage? Why are you showing up for the damage? Right?
image, yeah.
And and it was hard to explain to people why I felt called, but I really feel like this is a time where like the everyday practitioner, you know, all of us will be priests and our homes will become
Yes.
temples and our neighborhoods and our very lives become our altars. And I think that's the place we're headed.
Beautiful. Love the way you said that. Those will become our altars. Wow. More
Indeed.
sanctuaries.
Indeed.
Mhm.
Lenny, there's a couple of more questions. I'm not going to ask you them because we're running out of time. But I know that you will go back to the page, and if you are up to it and you feel like
I
it's like
will.
4 questions, please answer. It's like 4 questions that I would like you to answer. This has been an incredible conversation. I am encouraging you all to share this Facebook Live, share the YouTube, go back to it, replay it to hear what's really being said. So that,
Mm,
you know, sometimes we just skate by stuff. But this is the real deal here. What Bishop Pearson, what Lenny has said tonight is really the real deal. And there's some things that we're going to have to face, right? And there's some things that are coming up, right? They're telling us there's some things that are coming up that we're going to have to face. And so I hope that we get ourselves ready and make ourselves available to do all that we need to do
mm.
in terms of the instructions that we were given. We thank you so much, Lenny. Thank you, Bishop Pearson, for being with us tonight. Thank you, Facebook Live audience. Thank you, YouTube. We're going to go to our advertisement, and then we're going to go to give away the book. Stay with us, Lenny.
Make sure you give him my
I
information.
will. I promise. Yep.
All right.
And so we are grateful for Beyond the Gatekeepers. I hope that you are grateful for us being here and all of our conversations that we've had in the last 2 years. We want you to please support our broadcast by sending a donation via Cash App to $TFAM annual or to PayPal at www.paypal.me /TFAM Justice, so that we can further this work, so that we can do more than we've been doing. We're looking forward to having more films on. We're looking forward to having more music artists on. And so we want to make sure that this reaches far and wide. We thank you for your support, and we truly do appreciate you as you all continue to support us at Beyond the Gatekeepers. Thank you so much. Save the date, July 12th through the 16th. Our presiding bishop, Bishop Yvette A. Flunder, we are having a conference, TFAM Conference 2022. Have we got good religion? And so we will be in Phoenix, Arizona at the Arizona Biltmore, Frank Lloyd Wright property, 2400 East Missouri Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona, 85016. The room rate is $119 per night. Early registration is done, but you can still register now. Regular registration ends July 1st. Please keep that in mind. It is $125 now. You can go to the TFAM website to find out all the information about the leadership conference. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much, Dominic. And so we have a festival that's coming up. It's called the Love Festival. I have some notes on it. I know that I announced it on last week. Many people were asking about it. And so here we are. This is One Love Festival. One Love Festival is a 2-day event. It's going to be held in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, June 17th and 18th. And this is a festival that centers and celebrates African diasporic culture through music, through art, through innovation, through spirituality, through health equity, and through entrepreneurship. So for more information and you want to purchase tickets for the One Love Festival, go to www.1lovefestival.com. All one word, www.1lovefestival.com. Confirmed participants. We got the Jazz of a Tribe Called Quest, featuring Malcolm Jamal Warner and Dashiell Smith, Chelsea Green and the Green Project, Morsiki Scales and the Common Ground Collective, Tara Lord, and Soul Tree. So please support this event. Thank you so much. We have Donate to Your Church. We have Lifestyle of Global Properties. Antonio Mattier is our lifestyle realtor. And what Antonio is saying to us is that he will give to your church while accomplishing your goal of home ownership if you make a transaction, whether you sell a piece of property that's commercial or otherwise, and you are located in California or Georgia, then 10% of whatever it is that you sell will go to TFAM, which is the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, or City of Refuge. If you want to look up Lifestyle Realtor, please make sure that you go to the website or go to his website, www.antoniomattier.com. That's www.antoniomattier.com. TNT Tuesdays, Tuesday Night Talks. This is RIM Virtual Experience. Bishop-elect Sonia E. Williams is the senior pastor of the church, and with us pretty much every week. She is inviting us to join them every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for everyday, real, relevant, Bible-led conversations. If you are looking for where you can find RIM, you can go to www.rimatlanta.org. You can go to their Facebook page at RIM Fellowship UCC. You can go to their Instagram page, it's RIM Fellowship, or you can go to their YouTube page at RIM Fellowship UCC. Thank you so much for your support, Bishop-elect Sonia Williams. And then we have the Healing Place Apothecary. This is a company that's owned, operated, and founded by Nubian Flunder. She is the daughter of our presiding bishop. If you're interested in any of her product, please go to her website. The website is www.nubianflunder.com. which stands for the Healing Place Apothecary.com. That's www.thpapothecary.com to find out more about the products that she is offering. Support Black businesses. We have Sky Michelle teas and things. Go to www.skymichelle.com, where the kid is the boss. She has teas and mugs and all kind of things. She has a collection of t-shirts, Dope Black t-shirt, Faith motivational t-shirts, Flunder motivational quotes, Kara motivational quotes. She has some blinged out t-shirts. She has customization of any kind of t-shirt you want, any kind of mug you want, any kind of glass you want. It's a wonderful thing. Follow her at Facebook and on Instagram at I Am Sky Michelle. That's at I Am Sky Michelle, her Facebook page and her Instagram page. Support Black businesses. And then we have on June the 11th, we have something called Inspire by Kara, highlighting BIPOC entrepreneurs, influencers, and creatives on a mission to change the community and the world. The host is our tech producer for tonight, Susan A. Weberly. She's the founder of Kara Solutions, and her guest is Tiffany McCall, founder of affirmher.com. Nope, a founder of affirmher.co. And so you want to tune in on this coming Saturday, June the 11th, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Central, and 7 a.m. Pacific. You can find them on Facebook and YouTube at Kara Solutions LLC. That's at Kara Solutions LLC on Facebook and on YouTube. Please support Black businesses. If you want to advertise with Beyond the Gatekeepers, make sure that you email us. Go to Beyond the Gatekeepers show at gmail.com. That's Beyond the Gatekeepers with an S show, SHOW, at gmail.com. Thank you for supporting us. All right, we have some books to give away. I believe 6 is the total. I hope that you've typed in the hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. If you haven't done it, do it now. Hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers so that you can win you a book on tonight. Who will be our first winner? Let us see. Our first winner is Chini Chinchella. Chini Chinchella, if you are watching, if you can hear me now, please go to the inbox, the messenger piece of Beyond the Gatekeepers page, and make sure that you put in your full name and your mailing address so that we can get your book to you. You are the winner, Chini Chinchella. 5 more books to go. Chris Watson, we want to say congratulations to you. First of all, please go to the Beyond the Gatekeepers page. Make sure you go to the inbox and put your full name and address so that we can make sure that the publisher gets the book out to you. Marlene C. McLaurin, you are a winner again, and we are grateful for your presence. We say congratulations to you. You know what to do. Go into our inbox. Make sure you put your name and address. Thank you so much. Looking for our 4th winner. Reverend Tracy Ruffin, you are a winner. Go into the Beyond the Gatekeepers page. Congratulations to you. Make sure you give us your full name and your address. Thank you so much. Looking for our 5th winner. JT Allison, congratulations to you. You are a winner. Please go into the Beyond the Gatekeepers page. Make sure you go into the messenger, put your full name and address so that we can mail you out a book. Congratulations. Thank you again. This is our last person. Our last winner is coming up, and we'll go. Marie Lee Jenkins, if you're still with us, make sure that you go into the Beyond the Gatekeepers page. We say congratulations to you tonight. Make sure you put your full name and your address because you are a winner. We want to make sure you get your book. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. You've been quite wonderful to us. Please join us on next week. We are having a wonderful conversation with Dr. Carrie Day. Dr. Carrie Day will be with us on next week. We want to make sure that you join in. If you know about Dr. Carrie Day, then you know that she is a powerful author. We've had her a number of times before. Dr. Carrie Day has a new book. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to be in conversation with her with regards to her new book. And the new book is called Azusa Reimagined. Azusa Reimagined, a radical vision. You all want to spread the word real quick. Let the saints know that Dr. Carrie Day will be with us next week. We're looking forward to it. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. God bless. Have a great night.